It's 1 a.m. on a November Saturday in a Houston Heights neighborhood. Neon signs glow, cars hum, and the air is thick with cold autumn silence. A grainy surveillance captures a lone figure, a young man half running, half staggering down the sidewalk. He sways as if his legs can barely carry him, almost limping. Moments earlier, that same man was escorted out of a bar for being too intoxicated. Now he's alone, disoriented, and vanishing into the damp Texas night. With no witnesses, no arrest, and a medical examiner calling it undetermined. The question remains, who watched, who failed, and who will answer for Delano Burkes? Tonight, we ignite his story. Welcome back to Cigar and a Crime, broadcasting from the Lounge of Truth. I am your host, Dr. D. And in Houston, in cities like this, it takes a heartbeat to spark a life, and sometimes just as fast to extinguish it. Delano Burkes isn't a headline on national news. He's not the kind of victim that fits the mold for mainstream crisis. But his disappearance, his death, teaches us everything we need to know about what happens when the city looks away. Tonight, we'll walk his path. We'll hear what his mother has to say, what the video shows, and what's being asked of a community too eager to close the chapter too soon. But first, since this is Cigar and a Crime, let's talk about our cigar of the day. Every episode, I pair a story with the cigar that symbolically resonates with the case. For this episode, I've chosen The Last Call by A.J. Fernandez. It's a short, robust cigar originally crafted as a late-night smoke, something to cap off an evening. I selected it not only for its name, Last Call, but for its symbolism. On the night he disappeared, Delano Burkes was out past last call at a bar, and those final moments of the night proved critical. The cigar itself has a rich, dark flavor with notes of cedar and spice. A contemplative smoke that burns about 40 minutes, just enough time to reflect on how a night's final chapter can turn dire. Last Call is a reminder that what happens in those twilight hours can change everything. Now with the aroma of aged tobacco in the air and the stage set, let's dive into Last Call in the Heights, the story of Delano Burkes and the search for the truth behind the untimely death. This is episode 4, Falling Through the Heights, the disappearance of Delano Burkes. Let's spark the truth. Before the lights faded for good, Delano Burkes was known as D to close friends, a family spirit with a big grin and bigger dreams. He was a Houston native, a 26-year-old black man, roughly 5'11". He worked at McIntyre's pub in the Heights and delivered for Frank's bakery. Now this is the same hub where he also went out that night. He vanished. Keep that in mind. That was his rhythm. Early mornings, evening shifts, always hustling for the day ahead. Family wasn't just family for him. They were his fuel. His mother, Karen, said that weekend he'd been through a breakup and was visibly upset, clutching his chest on video like the weight was physical. He's also survived by his wife, Autumn Burkes, his mother, Karen, and his father, Stephen Burkes. Also, the obituary page included a note that Delano and Autumn were married when they were just 22 years old. Friends remember his laughter after a shift, his big soulful voice, his pride when he held their kids, his passion for the community basketball pickups around Fighting Indian Park. Neighbors described a dependable presence. If he saw you struggling, he helped load your car or even held your door. Not a hero by headline standards, but a connective thread in a city brimming with strangers. He never vanished before, No record of past trauma, no run-ins with the law enforcement. His life wasn't a whisper, it was a quiet backdrop of a life being lived, then silenced. And while the record is clear that Delano had no children of his own, he poured himself into being present for his family. His mother, Karen, and his siblings remember him as a deep, loyal person, someone who dreamed about not only personal success, but lifting others with him. Delano wasn't a whisper on the margins. He was becoming a young man balancing work at Franz bakery by day, real estate ambitions by night, and still carving out time for his community. A rhythm that was about building, growing, giving. His life had direction. It had purpose, which makes what happened next, his disappearance, and the silence around it, all the more haunting. On Saturday, November 12th, 2022 in Houston, Texas, Delano Burkes and his two friends are bar hopping along West 20th Street in the Heights. It's a cool night, and the streets are busy with people enjoying the weekend. The trio had come out to watch a big UFC fight on TV and just unwind a little bit. They hit a few spots, and by around 1 a.m., they end up at McIntyre's, a popular bar on West 20th, the same place Delano is employed. McIntyre's bar on West 20th in Houston Heights was the last known location where Delano Burkes was seen alive. The 26-year-old was captured on security footage being escorted out of this bar shortly after 1 a.m. on November 13th. Now, his family alleges that staff at McIntyre's overserved him and then removed him without ensuring his safety, which is a central claim in their recent wrongful death lawsuit. Inside McIntyre's at around 12:30 a.m., Delano separates from his friends to use the restroom. Minutes tick by. By 1:13 a.m., witnesses say Delano was very intoxicated, enough that the bar staff decided to intervene. It was getting just that bad. He's seen on surveillance video being escorted out the back door by security. In other words, he was kicked out for being too drunk. This is a critical moment. 1 minute, Delano is inside the bar with people around. The next, he's out on the dark street alone, unsteady, on his feet. Stumbling into the night, Delano appears on nearby security cameras. One camera on a storage facility shows him running and weaving down the street, almost as if he's impaired or injured. According to his mother, Karen, you can tell he was tipsy, but it also looks like more was involved. In that footage, he's nearly limping and struggling to keep his balance. His mom said he did not look like he had control of his legs. Karen later recounted describing the haunting video. To Delano's family, these images were disturbing. They felt like it didn't look like a normal, drunk stumble, but possibly if he'd been drugged or harmed, as if something sinister was happening to him. And out front, Delano's friends, the two friends are waiting in his car in a nearby parking lot, unaware he's been forced out, according to them. They soon realize he's missing. They text his phone. They try to call. No answer. The phone is likely dying or already dead. The friends even check a neighboring bar, the Moonshine Deck, thinking he might have wandered there. So for about 15 to 20 minutes, they circle the block in the car, scanning for their buddy in the darkness. But they didn't find him. By 1:30 a.m., with no sign of Delano, and assuming he may have left without someone else or with someone else or gotten a ride, the friends decide to head home. They leave him. These assholes left him, taking Delano's car with them, unintentionally stranding him. In doing so, they leave Delano without transportation and, critically, without his ID. His wallet was in the car and with a phone that had run out of battery. Imagine this situation. Delano is now wandering the streets of the Heights past 1 a.m. intoxicated, possibly more intoxicated or impaired than anyone realized, with no phone, no ID, and no way to call for a ride. He's in an area roughly half a mile from White Oak Bayou, a waterway that winds through Houston. The streets have emptied out as the bars are beginning to close. For onlookers who later saw this footage, it was alarming to them. A lone man in an obvious distress, disappearing into the shadows. Hours pass. Delano never make it home that night. By the next morning, Sunday, November 13th, his family and friends now, they know something is terribly wrong. This responsible young man, known to always check in, hasn't contacted his wife, Autumn, or his mother. By midday, Houston police are notified that Delano Burkes is missing. As Sunday turns to Monday, concern for Delano grows. The Houston Police Department opens a missing persons case. Texas EquiSearch, a renowned volunteer search and rescue group, which is led by Tim Miller, joins that effort. Family and friends and volunteers began canvassing the area. They post flyers, knock on doors. And they reviewed the security camera footage from homes and businesses along Delano's last known path. Even drones and search dogs are deployed around the Heights, hoping to pick up any trace of the 26-year-old. Local leaders began to rally to help, calling on neighbors to check doorbells and cameras and any video footage they might have caught sight of Delano after he ran off. Crime Stoppers even announced a reward up to $5,000 for information, anticipating that perhaps a crime was involved in this disappearance. The implicit fear in everyone's mind is that Delano could have been abducted or assaulted, or might be injured somewhere unseen. For nearly 12 agonizing days, the search continues. The Heights community remains on edge and social media buzzes with theories. Did Delano wander into some construction site or alley and get hurt? Could he have fallen victim to foul play? Perhaps a robbery or an assault by someone who saw an easy target? Or given the nearby bayous and channels, did he somehow end up in the water that night? Then comes November 25th, 2022, the day after Thanksgiving. In the gray morning light, crew members aboard a tugboat make a chilling discovery. On the broad Houston Ship Channel, about 12 to 15 miles downriver from where Delano was last seen, a body is floating in the water. The workers notify authorities immediately. The Houston police dive team responds and recovers the body from the cold, murky channel. Though the body has likely been in the water for days, there are features that the family and searchers recognize at once. By that evening, the Harris County Medical Examiner's Office confirms the tragic news the Burkes family has dreaded. The body is indeed Delano Burkes. He was found nearly 2 weeks after he disappeared in a waterway connected to the very bayou that flows near the Heights. In fact, Tim Miller from the EquiSearch punts out that the McIntyre's bar was only about a half a mile from that Bayou's banks. Alarmingly, very close. It seems plausible that Delano, in whatever state he was in, made it to the Bayou and ended up in the water. But the question remains, how and why? The recovery of Delano's body brings some closure to the search, but it's a devastating blow to his loved ones, his wife, his mother, his siblings. They are left not only to grieve his loss, but to agonize over what exactly happened that night. And now this investigation shifts from a missing person to a death investigation. At first, there are no obvious signs. There's no gunshot wound, no knife wound, nothing that screams homicide at a glance. But this absence of clear physical injury doesn't automatically mean an accident, especially not to Delano's family. They immediately question how a strong, healthy young man could wind up dead in a channel miles away. Could he have been chased? Could he have drowned while trying to escape from someone? Was he consciously running from something or someone that night? This painful question swirls as the case moves into the forensic phase now. But I have questions. How did Delano Burkes end up miles from where he vanished? Why did it take so long to locate him when volunteers were searching the very waterways they found him in? There's no video placing him near the port of Houston. No known reason he'd head that way, and no timeline suggesting how he could have arrived there, especially on foot, under duress or otherwise. Even with access to a bar full of people, traffic cameras, and Houston Police Department's tech, no definitive answers have emerged. Delano family, they don't believe this was some kind of accident. They believe that possibly there's foul play involved, and it's more than one person knows exactly what happens. Was it his fucking friends? In a city of millions, Delano vanished with people close by. Surveillance captured him running. His friends drove away with everything he owned. And the silence that followed from investigators and peers alike is the kind that echoes far louder than words. Now let's look through the forensic lens, because when bodies surface and phones die, the truth hides in this scientific blur. The Harris County Medical Examiner's Office undertakes a full autopsy on Delano Burkes. Toxicology tests are ordered, tissues examined, and every piece of evidence on the body is cataloged. However, as weeks turn into months, the answers remain very frustratingly elusive. On December 9th of 2022, even before the final autopsy, Houston's police chief, Troy Fenner at the time, makes a public statement. He tweeted that all signs point to Delano's death being a tragic accident. They're still waiting on final autopsy, but stresses that detectives had found no foul play in Delano's disappearance. By early 2023, the autopsy and toxicology results come in, and they are inconclusive. They ruled Delano Burkes' cause and manner of death as undetermined. 6 months of analysis, yet they cannot even say for sure how he died. Was it a homicide? They can't tell. Suicide? No indication. But they can't rule anything out. Accident? Possibly. Drowning is suspected, but not definitively proven. There's simply not enough evidence to declare one way or the other. In the medical examiner's own words, they were stumped. Investigators acknowledged they aren't able to say whether Burkes' death was homicide, suicide, or an accident. A forensic expert by the name of Dr. Lauren Hayes stated that bodies in waterways are among the hardest to analyze. Water scavenges wounds, organ decomposition complicates toxicology. Without immediate autopsy, determining trauma natural causes becomes nearly impossible. That means absence of evidence is not evidence of absence. It means the system is likely groping in the dark, unable to say if Delano drowned, if he was assaulted, or worse, was forcibly drowned after injury. Just for context, around the same time in late 2022, 2 other young men in Houston had gone missing after nights out and were later found dead in waterways. A fact that's noted by local media. Internet forums began to really pick up because they thought about there could be a potential serial predator. They even called it the smiley face killer, targeting men at bars, but police found no evidence to support these theories. Each case, they said, appeared isolated. In Delano's case, specifically, by all public released accounts, there were no signs of assault. No indication of being robbed. He hadn't had his wallet anyway, and no clear motive for anyone to kill him. It began to seem plausible, at least to authorities, that Delano's death really might have been a horrible accident. Perhaps a perfect storm of intoxication, disorientation, and environmental hazard. And just going through this timeline, his phone died immediately when he left that bar. And that was verified through call logs hitting voicemails within minutes of him exiting. In so many cases, a phone silently powering down is a red flag, not just for evidence lost, but for the digital disappearance, no GPS tracing, no check-ins, no sudden surge in traffic or rideshare use. Then there's Delano's vehicle with its ID, wallet, and phone inside was driven off by the 2 unnamed friends. They didn't report him missing until days later. That's just not odd. It's a protocol alarm in missing persons investigations. In cases with peer delay, even the National Missing and Unidentified Person Systems highlights the early peer non-reporting correlates with increased danger and reduced case solvability. And by early 2023, however, the Burkes family story took an even darker turn, one that no one saw coming. On January 6, 2023, less than 2 months after Delano's body was found, Delano's older brother, Stephen, was at home with their mother and her longtime boyfriend, Santiago, in West Houston. Stephen, who had been struggling emotionally since Delano's death, he snapped in a violent episode. He allegedly grabbed a pistol and opened fire on his own family, killing Karen Jeffley, Delano's mother. Had been shot multiple times, grievously wounded, and her boyfriend, which is Stephen's stepfather, lay dead. Stephen tried to flee but was soon arrested by Houston police that same morning. He was charged with murder for the stepfather's death and aggravated assault against a family member for shooting his mother. As I come to an end of this story, Delano's body drifted miles away, and so did the clarity of his story. But we are here to chase those miles, to capture every ghost of evidence, no matter how silent, because undetermined should mean investigating deeper, not let it fade. As I take a final draw of this last call, Cigar, I contemplate its symbolism one more time. The end of the night can be deceptively peaceful. The crowds leave, the lights go out, and the city gets quiet. But for Delano, last call marked the beginning of a mystery and the end of a life. The smoke waffling from the cigar is smooth with hints of spice and sweetness. Yet there is bitterness in knowing how Delano's night ended. The cigar glow fades, and I'm reminded that each day's close is not guaranteed to be gentle. We must cherish our nights out, our friends, and our family, and take care of one another, especially when things go awkward. Delano's story isn't over in the same sense that questions remain unanswered. Perhaps someone out there holds a missing piece of information, something unseen, something heard that could shed light on how he wound up in that water. If you're listening and you know anything that might help, even if it's seem insignificant, please consider coming forward. This family deserves closure. And if there was wrongdoing, accountability must follow. Delano Burkes didn't vanish because he was reckless. He vanished because we live in a society that too often discards the vulnerable, especially moments of black men. That questions their intoxication, but not the environment that allowed it. That sees the body, but not the soul behind it. That lets 15 miles of silence drown out a cry for help. This isn't just about one night in Houston or one bar or one tragedy discovery in the Bayou. It's about the slow erosion of accountability when justice is optional. When someone's son, someone's husband, someone's friend becomes an unsolved puzzle because the system shrugs. Delano was 26. He had a business. He had a life, a plan. And still, he became a hashtag, a memory, a question mark. But I'm here to say, our memories are stronger than the silence. Our voices louder than the dismissal. And our demand for truth non-negotiable. We do this work here at Cigar and the Crime because we believe no one is disposable. Not when they're lost, not when the story goes cold, not when the system saves. That's all we can do. To the Burkes family, your pain has carved space into this movement. To every listener, hear me clearly. Your awareness is action. Your curiosity is resistance. Your voice is justice. So light that cigar. Sit with that discomfort and remember when we say every time, the smoke never lies, baby. You've been listening to Cigar and the Crime, where the smoke never lies and the truth refuses to stay buried. If you feel like you have information in this case, please contact the Houston Police Department at 713-308-3600. You can also call Crime Stoppers at 713-222-TIPS 8477 to remain anonymous, because someone knows something and it's time to speak. If you found value in this episode, please subscribe to Cigar and the Crime on your favorite podcast platform and consider leaving a review. Your support shines a light on cases like this one. God bless. This is Cigar and the Crime.